The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark cloud over Earth. It was 5 times bigger than the largest human spaceship. Inside the ship, Commander Zarthul looked at the blue planet on his viewing screen. His 4 eyes blinked one after another, and his gray skin wrinkled as he smiled. This would be an easy victory. "Report," he ordered his science officer. Officer Mexnar bowed slightly. "The humans are just as our data suggested, Commander. They are physically weak. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears. They tire quickly. Their lives are very short. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours. And their governments cannot agree on anything." Zarthul made a sound like rocks falling. It was laughter. "And yet they claim to have great heroes and warriors. Pathetic. Prepare the communication channel. I will speak to their leaders." On Earth, in the United Nations Emergency Council room, 50 world leaders sat in tense silence. The alien message had arrived 3 days ago. It was simple: prepare to discuss terms of surrender or be destroyed. After years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, the answer had come in the worst possible way. "The channel is opening," said General Diane Rogers. She stood tall despite the fear everyone felt. "Remember, we need to buy time. Our fleet is still gathering." The large screen at the front of the room flickered, and the alien commander appeared. His 4 eyes looked at them with what seemed like amusement. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Commander Zarthul of the Hegemony. Your planet is now under our protection and control. Resistance is not advised." President Luis Garcia stood up. "We welcome communication with your people, Commander, but Earth is a free world. We do not accept control by outside forces." Zarthul's upper eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. Your species has been studied and found wanting. You are weak, divided, and primitive. Your addition to the hegemony is a mercy." Captain Olivia Martinez stepped forward. As Earth's chief diplomatic officer, she had been chosen for her calm mind and quick thinking. "Commander, with respect, you may have misjudged us. Humans have survived and thrived against great odds throughout our history." The alien made that strange, rocky laughing sound again. "Yes, we have reviewed your historical records. Very creative fiction." "They are not fiction," Olivia said firmly. "Humans have endured ice ages, plagues, and disasters. We have climbed the highest mountains with no equipment. We have survived alone at sea for months. Our ancestors crossed entire oceans on wooden boats using only stars to guide them." Unlikely exaggerations. Zarthul dismissed her with a wave of his 6-fingered hand. "Such stories are common among primitive species. They help you feel less afraid of your obvious weaknesses." Lieutenant William Hayes couldn't stay quiet any longer. "Those aren't just stories. Last year, a 12-year-old girl survived a plane crash and walked through jungle for 10 days to find help. 2 winters ago, a man fell through ice and kept himself alive for 3 days until rescue came. These things happened." The commander's face showed nothing but boredom. "Your emotional outburst only confirmed my assessment. You have 72 of your Earth hours to prepare for our arrival. Your world leaders will meet with me to arrange your surrender. Any military action will result in immediate consequences. End transmission." The screen went dark. The room exploded with voices. Some leaders wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. No one knew what to do. Behind them all, sitting quietly in the back row, Major Alan Shepard watched and listened. He wasn't supposed to be there. As a Special Forces operative, his presence was classified. But the Joint Chiefs had wanted him in the room. General Rogers noticed his silence. She walked over and sat beside him. "What are you thinking, Alan?" Alan's eyes never left the now empty screen. "He doesn't know us, not really." "Explain." "He's read reports, seen data, but he's never faced a human who refuses to give up." Alan's voice was soft but certain. "Every strength can be a weakness. His confidence will blind him." General Rogers lowered her voice. "The hegemony ships have already destroyed our moon base and the orbital defense platforms. They didn't even slow down. Our remaining ships are outmatched in every way." Alan finally turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but something burned behind them. Then we don't fight fair. 3 hours later, in a secure underground facility, Alan stood before the Unified Defense Council. 6 military leaders from different nations sat at a long table. Maps and data about the alien ships filled the screens around the room. Major Shepard, your service record is impressive, said Admiral Chen, but this is beyond anything we've faced. Alan nodded. Yes, sir. But the hegemony has a critical weakness. Which is? Asked General Mills. Arrogance. Alan stepped forward and pointed to the image of the alien flagship. They believe they know everything about us. They've studied our physical limitations but missed our greatest strength. Which is? Repeated General Mills. Adaptation. Innovation. Humans don't follow the expected path when cornered. Alan looked each council member in the eye. I believe a small team could infiltrate their flagship, 1 person even. The room went quiet. That's suicide, said Air Marshal Patel finally. Probably, Alan agreed. But right now, they're not expecting any resistance. They think we're broken already. That gives us one chance for someone to get aboard, gather intelligence on their weaknesses, and possibly disrupt their command structure. Admiral Chen leaned forward. And you're volunteering? Yes, sir. The council members looked at each other. They had no better options. How would you even get aboard their ship? Asked General Rogers. A slight smile touched Alan's lips. 2 months ago, we recovered a damaged hegemony scout ship after a brief encounter near Jupiter. Dr. Eleanor Wright has been studying it. I believe it can be made operational, the council whispered among themselves. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke. This is a desperate plan. Yes, sir. Those are the only kind that work when the odds are impossible. General Rogers stood up. I've seen Major Shepard's full record. Most of it is classified beyond this room. He has survived situations that should have been impossible. If anyone can do this, he can. The vote was quick. The mission was approved. As the council members filed out, General Rogers touched Alan's arm. The hegemony commander thinks all our stories of human courage are lies. Maybe this mission will change his mind. Alan shook his head. I'm not trying to be a legend, ma'am. Just trying to give humanity a fighting chance. That's how all legends start, Major. She handed him a small data device. Complete access to everything we know about their technology. Dr. Wright is waiting. For you in Lab 7. Alan took the device and nodded once. As he walked toward the lab, his mind was already planning, adapting, finding edges and angles others might miss. The alien commander had studied humans as a species, but he had never met a human like Alan Shepard, and that might just save Earth. The underground lab hummed with activity. Dr. Eleanor Wright didn't look up from her work when Alan entered. Her hands moved quickly over the alien technology spread across her workbench. Only when he cleared his throat did she notice him. Major Shepard, she said, pushing her glasses up. They approved your crazy plan, then? They did, Alan replied. How's our ride coming along? Eleanor gestured to the small craft in the center of the lab. It looked like a cross between a fighter jet and a manta ray. Its dark metal surface seemed to swallow light. The scout ship is mostly repaired. It will fly. She frowned. But there's a problem. The hegemony uses biosignature locks. The ship knows its pilot isn't on board. Alan walked around the alien craft studying it. Can we trick it? Eleanor smiled for the first time. Maybe. I've been working on something. She picked up what looked like a thin silver wristband. This contains genetic material from the dead pilot. It might fool the ship's scanners long enough for you to take control. As Eleanor showed Alan how to use the alien systems, a young officer entered with a data tablet. Major Shepard, I have your file for review before the mission. Alan took the tablet and scrolled through it. Most pages were heavily redacted with thick black lines covering the text. The officer looked confused. I don't understand why they sent this. You can't even read most of it. Alan handed it back. I lived it. I don't need to read it. After the officer left, Eleanor looked at Alan with new interest. Just who are you, Major? Alan continued checking the scout ship's systems. Just a soldier who's good at staying alive. No, Eleanor said. I checked your basic record. 15 years in special reconnaissance, 3 times listed as the sole survivor of operations. Multiple commendations that don't state what they're for. You're not just anything. Alan was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Wright, we have 12 hours before I leave. Let's focus on what matters. As they worked through the night, Eleanor's respect for Alan grew. He learned the alien technology faster than anyone she had ever seen. He didn't just memorize what she taught him. He understood it, finding connections she had missed. How did you know that control sequence? She asked after he correctly activated a system she hadn't shown him. It follows the same pattern as their weapons system, he said simply. They think logically, but it's always the same logic. That's their weakness. By morning, the scout ship was ready. Alan changed into a special suit Eleanor had designed. It contained materials that might help mask his human life signs from alien sensors. General Rogers arrived as he was preparing to leave. She carried a small case. Last-minute addition, she said, opening it to reveal a small device. Dr. Wright's team just finished it. It can create a targeted electromagnetic pulse that might disrupt their systems. Very short range, though. Alan took the device and secured it in a hidden pocket. Thank you. The hegemony ships have moved closer, General Rogers said. They destroyed 3 of our defensive satellites this morning, just to show they could. Her face was grim. We're running out of time. I'll need a distraction to launch without being noticed, Alan said. General Rogers nodded. There's a planned diplomatic meeting happening in 2 hours. The aliens agreed to let a small human delegation visit their secondary command ship. Everyone will be focused on that. Good luck, Major, Eleanor said, handing him a small communicator. This is tuned to a frequency the hegemony doesn't monitor. If you find anything useful, you can let us know. As Alan prepared to board the scout ship, General Rogers placed a hand on his shoulder. Major, may I ask you something personal? Alan nodded. Your file mentions you survived 17 days alone in the mountains after an accident. You were just a teenager. How? Alan's eyes grew distant. It was winter. The car went off the road. My parents died on impact. He paused. I knew no one was coming, so I walked. When I couldn't walk, I crawled. What kept you going? A shadow of an old pain crossed his face. I made a promise to my mother when I was a child, that I would always come home. He looked at the general. I keep my promises. 2 hours later, as the diplomatic shuttle approached the secondary hegemony ship, Alan powered up the scout ship. The biosignature band on his wrist glowed softly. The alien craft hummed to life, accepting him as its pilot. Scoutcraft X-117, to command, Alan said into the communication system, using the alien language Eleanor had taught him. His voice was altered by the ship's systems to sound like a hegemony officer. Requesting permission for sensor sweep of outlying moon quadrants. There was a pause. Alan held his breath. Permission granted, X-117, came the reply. Keep channel open for updates. The small ship lifted smoothly from the hidden underground hangar. Alan guided it up through a mountain tunnel that opened to the sky. Once in the air, he activated the stealth systems Eleanor had explained. The massive hegemony flagship grew larger on his view screen. It was shaped like an arrowhead and was as big as a small city. Lights flickered across its surface like stars. Smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Alan's hands were steady on the controls as he approached. He had been in impossible situations before. When he was trapped behind enemy lines during the resource wars, everyone had thought he was dead. For 6 months, he had survived, gathered intelligence, and finally made it back to friendly territory, with critical information that helped end the conflict. This was just another mission, another problem to solve. The scout ship's sensors showed him the flagship's docking bays. He chose one on the far side, away from the diplomatic activity. Using the codes in the scout ship's memory, he transmitted clearance signals and approached, slowly. X-117, your flight path is irregular, a voice suddenly said over the communication system. Explain deviation. Alan's mind raced. Sensor malfunction, he replied calmly. Requesting emergency docking for repairs. Another pause. Longer this time. Proceed to Maintenance Bay 6, the voice finally said. Alan guided the ship toward the indicated bay. As the massive doors opened to receive him, he checked his weapons one last time. The small pulse device from General Rogers. A knife made of a non-metallic material that wouldn't set off sensors. His own knowledge and training. It would have to be enough. The scout ship settled onto the docking platform. Through the view screen, Alan could see hegemony crew members approaching. They walked with the confidence of those who had never known defeat. Alan took a deep breath and activated the ship's exit sequence. The moment had come. One human against an empire that thought humanity was weak. He would prove them wrong or die trying. As the door opened, he thought again of his 17 days in the mountains. The cold, the hunger, the fear. But mostly, he remembered the determination that had kept him moving forward, one painful step at a time. That same determination filled him now as he stepped out to face the aliens, his face a mask of calm confidence. The hidden hero of Earth was now inside the enemy's fortress. The real mission had begun. Alan stepped out of the scout ship with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Two hegemony technicians approached. They were taller than humans, with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked in sequence. Alan kept his face hidden in the shadow of his helmet. Maintenance report, one technician demanded. Alan touched his wrist device and spoke in their language. Navigation sensors failing. Required immediate docking. The technician looked at a data pad. You are not scheduled for return. Emergencies are never scheduled, Alan replied calmly. The technician's upper eyes narrowed, but he nodded. Proceed to diagnostic chamber for standard scan. Alan knew a scan would reveal he was human. He needed a distraction. As they walked, he secretly pressed a small button on his belt. Behind them, a small explosion rocked the scout ship. Nothing damaging, just a controlled fuel line rupture Eleanor had prepared. Hull breach, the second technician shouted. Both aliens ran back toward the smoking ship. Alan slipped away quickly. He moved through the corridors, keeping his head down. Eleanor had studied the limited layout information they had on hegemony ships. The most important areas would be in the center. He headed inward. The flagship was enormous. Thousands of hegemony crew members moved through its hallways. Alan blended in by walking purposefully, as if on an important mission. When someone looked his way, he changed his path or ducked into side passages. He found a maintenance tunnel that ran between major sections of the ship. It was tight and dark, perfect for moving unseen. The tunnel led him to a large open area, filled with glowing computer screens and busy technicians. From their movements and the security, Alan could tell this was an important control center. He waited in the shadows, watching. After an hour, he understood the pattern of their work. There was a 5-minute gap when the main console was unattended during shift changes. That would be his chance. When the moment came, Alan moved quickly. He slipped to the main console and plugged in a small device Eleanor had given him. It copied data at high speed. In less than a minute, he had downloaded maps of the entire ship, communication logs and battle plans. What he saw made his blood run cold. The hegemony wasn't just planning to conquer Earth. They wanted to use it as a base to attack other systems. Earth was just the first step in a massive invasion plan. Alan was about to leave when something else caught his eye. Power system diagrams. He downloaded those too. Eleanor had said understanding their technology might reveal weaknesses. A door opened. Alan ducked beneath the console just as a high-ranking officer entered. The alien's uniform had more markings than any Alan had seen. He was speaking to someone through a communication device. Yes, Commander Zarthul. The human delegation is still being given the tour of our secondary vessel. They suspect nothing. Alan froze at the mention of the commander. Their primitive minds are easily impressed by our technology, the officer continued. They truly believe we are considering peaceful options. The officer laughed that strange rocky sound. The attack preparations are proceeding as planned. Earth's defenses will fall within hours of your command. When the officer left, Alan quickly moved toward the exit. He had what he came for. Now, he needed to get the information back to Earth. But as he reached the corridor, alarms began to sound. Intruder alert. Security breach in Central Command. All personnel on high alert. Had they discovered him? Alan moved faster, keeping to the maintenance tunnels. He needed to find a communication station to transmit the data to Earth. The small communicator Eleanor had given him didn't have the power to send so much information across such a distance. He found a minor communication hub with only one technician. Alan slipped behind the alien and used a pressure point technique that worked on many species. The technician slumped unconscious. Alan dragged him out of sight and took his place at the controls. The alien technology was complex, but Alan had studied similar systems. He began connecting his data device to send the information to Earth. The system required authorization codes. Alan used the unconscious technician's ID and hoped it would be enough. The screen flashed green. Transmission beginning. Alan watched as the ship plans and battle strategies began uploading to a secure Earth receiver. Then the screen flashed red. Transmission blocked. Did you really think it would be that easy, human? Alan turned slowly. Commander Zarthul himself stood in the doorway. He was larger than the other aliens, his gray skin darker and marked with scars. All four of his eyes were fixed on Alan. I must admit I am impressed you made it this far, the commander said. How did one of you primitive creatures manage to infiltrate my flagship? Alan stood straight. No point hiding now. He removed his helmet. We humans are full of surprises. Zarthul studied him. Indeed. Our security systems detected an anomaly, but I didn't believe a human could possibly be aboard. I was wrong. He sounded almost pleased. That rarely happens. Alan glanced at the communication console. The data transfer had stopped at 67%. Not everything, but enough had gotten through. Earth would know the hegemony's plans now. Your species continues to behave illogically, Zarthul said, stepping closer. Why throw away your life on a mission that cannot succeed? You must have known you would be caught. Sometimes the mission is worth the risk, Alan said. And what mission is that? Spying? Sabotage? The commander's upper eyes narrowed. Did you really think one human could make a difference against the might of the hegemony? Alan smiled slightly. One person can always make a difference. That's something you don't understand about humans. We don't calculate odds the way you do. When something matters enough, we try even when success seems impossible. Zarthul made a dismissive gesture. Irrational sentiment. It changes nothing. Your data transmission was incomplete. Whatever you learned will not save your planet. Maybe not, Alan admitted. But now we know what we're facing. And humans fight hardest when our backs are against the wall. The commander studied Alan with new curiosity. You are not what I expected, human. You show unusual courage for such a fragile creature. You've studied our physical limitations, Alan said, but you've missed what makes us strong. Which is? Our ability to adapt, to overcome, to find a way forward even when there seems to be none. Alan's voice was calm but intense. Your reports tell you we're weak. Your data shows our short lives and fragile bodies. But there's no way to measure determination, Commander. No data point for hope or courage. 4 armed guards entered behind Zarthul. The commander gestured toward Alan. Take him to the high-security detention level. I wish to interrogate this human properly. He looked at Alan with his 4 eyes. I want to understand how he got aboard my ship before I destroy his world. As the guards surrounded him, Alan remained calm. He had accomplished part of his mission. The information he sent would give Earth a fighting chance, and he wasn't done yet. As long as he was alive, he could still find a way to help. The guards marched him out of the communication center. Through the massive windows in the corridor, Alan could see Earth shining blue and white in the distance. His home, worth any risk to protect, and he had one more card to play. The small EMP device General Rogers had given him was still hidden in his boot. He hadn't yet found the right target, but he would. Somehow he would. The detention cell was small and bare, 3 walls and a force field that shimmered with blue energy. Alan sat quietly on the metal bench, eyes closed. To the guard watching him, he appeared defeated. In truth, he was memorizing the sounds around him, the hum of the engines, the pattern of the guard rotations, the slight fluctuation in the force field every 87 seconds. 4 hours had passed since his capture. The small EMP device remained hidden in his boot. The guards had searched him but missed it, not recognizing Earth technology for what it was. The force field rippled and vanished. Commander Zarthul entered, flanked by 2 guards. He dismissed them with a gesture. They looked uncertain but obeyed, moving just out of earshot down the corridor. "I reviewed the data you attempted to send to Earth," Zarthul said. "You managed to transmit our ship schematics and part of our battle plans." Alan said nothing. "It will not help them," the commander continued. "Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships cannot match our speed." He tilted his head. "But I am curious. How did one human infiltrate my flagship? Our security systems are the most advanced in 12 star systems." Alan looked up at him. "You rely too much on your technology. You trust it completely." "Because it is perfect." Alan almost smiled. "Nothing is perfect. Everything has a flaw if you look hard enough." The commander's 4 eyes studied him. "And what flaw did you find in our perfect system?" "You assumed humans were too primitive to understand it. So you never considered we might use it against you." Zarthul made a sound that might have been respect. "You are different from the others I've met." The diplomats were fearful. The military officials were angry but helpless. He paced the small cell. "You are neither afraid nor angry. Why?" "Both waste energy," Alan said simply. "What is your name, human?" "Major Alan Shepard." The commander nodded slowly. "Major Shepard, I offer you a choice. Tell me how you infiltrated my ship, what weaknesses you have discovered, and I will spare your life when we conquer Earth." Alan met the alien's gaze. "And if I refuse? Then I will extract the information anyway, and you will not survive to see your world fall." Alan stood up slowly. The commander was much taller, broader. Physically, there was no contest between them. "There's something you should know about humans, Commander." "What is that?" "We don't respond well to threats." What happened next was too fast for the guards to follow. Alan lunged forward, not at the commander but past him. His hand slammed against the control panel by the cell door. The ship's alarm system blared to life. Red lights flashed throughout the detention level. "Containment breach, Sector 7. The automated system announced. All around them, force fields dropped as the emergency protocol activated, releasing prisoners to evacuation points in case of ship damage. Chaos erupted in the detention block. Prisoners of various species ran in all directions. Guards shouted, trying to restore order. Zarthul roared in anger, grabbing for Alan, but the human was already moving with the flow of escaping prisoners. The commander barked orders into his communication device. "Override the alarm, it's a trick. Find the human." Alan used the confusion to make his way deeper into the ship. The data he had seen earlier had shown him something critical, the flagship's main power core. If he could reach it, the EMP device might disable the ship long enough for Earth to prepare better defenses. He found a maintenance shaft and climbed inside. The ship's diagrams were clear in his mind as he navigated the narrow passages. Below him, he could hear security teams searching. His trick wouldn't buy him much time. The shaft led him to a massive chamber filled with pulsing blue energy, the power core. It was beautiful in a strange way, like a captured star. Around it, technicians monitored control panels. Security was heavy here. 6 armed guards. Alan watched from the shadows, calculating. He couldn't fight them all. He needed another way. His eyes fell on a set of pipes running along the ceiling. They carried coolant to prevent the core from overheating. If he could disrupt that system, it would create an emergency that might clear the room. Using pipes and support Beams for handholds, Alan climbed silently across the ceiling of the chamber. None of the aliens looked up. He reached a junction box that controlled the coolant flow and carefully removed its cover. The wiring inside was complex, but Alan had studied enough hegemony technology to understand the basics. He crossed 2 circuits, then 3 more. Warning lights flashed on the control panels below. Coolant pressure dropping, a technician shouted. Core temperature rising. Evacuate to safe distance, ordered the security chief. Emergency team to power core. The room emptied quickly. Alan dropped down from the ceiling and moved to the main control console. The power core pulsed faster now, its blue glow intensifying as it heated up. He had minutes at most before the emergency team arrived. He studied the system, looking for the right place to use the EMP device. The core itself was too well shielded. But there, a secondary control node that regulated power distribution throughout the ship. If he could disable that, it would create a cascade failure. Alan planted the EMP device on the node and set the timer for 30 seconds. He turned to leave, but a familiar voice stopped him. Impressive, Major Shepard. Commander Zarthul stood in the doorway, holding a weapon aimed at Alan's chest. He was alone. You created a perfect distraction. You navigated my ship as if born to it. You even found the one weakness in our power system. The commander's voice held genuine admiration. In all my years commanding this fleet, I have never encountered an enemy like you. Alan glanced at the EMP device. 20 seconds. Step away from the control node, Zarthul ordered. Your ship is overheating, Alan said. If you don't let the technicians back in soon, you'll have bigger problems than one human. A problem we can solve after I deal with you. The commander stepped closer. Your species should have surrendered. Why fight when you cannot win? 10 seconds. Alan smiled slightly. That's where you're wrong. Humans don't fight because we think we'll win. We fight because some things are worth fighting for even when victory seems impossible. 5 seconds. Zarthul sensed something was wrong. He lunged forward just as Alan dove to the side. The EMP device activated with a high-pitched whine. A pulse of energy shot outward, invisible but powerful. The ship's lights went dark, the pulsing core dimmed but stabilized. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing the room in dim red light. In that moment of darkness, Alan and Zarthul collided. The alien commander was stronger, but Alan was quicker. They fell to the floor, grappling in the red half-light. The commander's weapon skidded away across the smooth metal floor. Your device failed, Zarthul growled. The core is protected against such attacks. The core wasn't my target, Alan gasped as the commander's grip tightened around his throat. The power distribution was. Check your systems. Zarthul's upper eyes blinked in sequence. He activated his communication device. No response. He tried again. Nothing. What have you done? He demanded. Alan managed a smile despite the pressure on his throat. Cut off your command ship from the rest of your fleet. Temporarily, at least. But long enough for Earth to get ready for what's coming. The commander roared in anger and lifted Alan off the ground. I will end you myself. What happened next would become legend in both human and hegemony history. Commander Zarthul's grip was like iron around Alan's throat. The human could feel his vision beginning to darken, but even as his body weakened, his mind remained sharp. He noticed what the commander did not, a faint hissing sound from the cooling pipes above them. Alan stopped struggling. This confused Zarthul enough that his grip loosened slightly. Alan used that moment to glance meaningfully upward. The coolant system, he gasped. Listen. The commander's upper eyes looked up while his lower eyes remained fixed on Alan. The eye, hissing, had grown louder. A small crack had formed in one of the pipes, stressed by the power fluctuations. Coolant was leaking out, creating a fine mist in the air above them. Your ship is wounded, Alan said. Like me. But we can both still survive this, Zarthul hesitated. In that moment, with a sound like thunder, the damaged pipe burst. Pressurized coolant exploded outward. The force threw both Alan and the commander against the wall. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Core temperature critical. Coolant failure. In main chamber. Emergency protocols activated. The room began to seal itself. Heavy metal doors started to close slowly. The ship's automatic systems were containing the damage. Alan and Zarthul both lay stunned on the floor. The human recovered first, years of training taking over. He got to his feet, unsteady but moving. He could escape now, find another way, to disable the ship while the commander was trapped. But then he saw it. A section of metal ceiling had fallen on Zarthul's leg, pinning him to the floor. The commander was struggling to free himself, his 4 eyes wide with the realization of what was happening. In minutes, the room would be sealed. The coolant was toxic. Without protection, neither of them would survive long. Alan stopped at the slowly closing door. Freedom was steps away. Earth needed him. Every logical part of his mind told him to leave the commander to his fate. He turned back. Zarthul watched, in disbelief as the human returned to his side. "What are you doing? Save yourself." Alan didn't answer. He braced himself against the fallen metal and pushed with all his strength. It barely moved. The commander added his strength, and together, they shifted it enough for Zarthul to pull free. The doors were almost closed now. They would never make it in time. There, Alan pointed to a small maintenance hatch in the wall. Emergency exit for technicians. They crawled through the narrow opening seconds before the main doors sealed completely. They emerged into a small, antechamber with transparent walls. Through them, they could see the core room filling with coolant mist. Zarthul's leg was badly injured. Dark fluid that must have been his blood soaked his uniform. Alan tore a strip from his own clothing and wrapped it tightly around the wound. "Why?" the commander asked, his voice softer than Alan had ever heard it. "You could have escaped. Left me to die." Alan continued working on the leg. "That's not who we are. Not who I am." "Your actions make no sense," Zarthul insisted. "I am your enemy. I would have killed you. I still plan to conquer your world." Alan looked up at him. "Those facts didn't change. But you were trapped and needed help, so I helped." The commander was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. "In all our studies of your species, we never saw this. You value life even when logic says you should not." "It's not about logic," Alan said. "It's about who we choose to be, especially in the hardest moments." Beyond the antechamber, they could see emergency teams in protective gear entering the core room. Soon they would be found. "They will take you prisoner again," Zarthul said. Alan nodded. "I know. You had the perfect chance to escape." "Some things are more important than escape." Alan sat back against the wall. His throat was bruised from the commander's grip, but he was otherwise unhurt. The next hours passed in a blur. Alan was taken back to detention, but to a different cell. This one had a proper bed and clean water. He slept, allowing his body to recover from the ordeal. He woke to find Commander Zarthul standing outside his cell. The commander's leg was healed. Their medical technology was clearly advanced. But something else had changed too. The way he stood, the look in his 4 eyes. "Our technicians have restored our communications," Zarthul said. "The fleet awaits my order to begin the attack on Earth." Alan stood up, facing the commander with dignity. "And will you give that order?" "I reviewed our research on humans again," Zarthul said. "We studied your physical weaknesses extensively. We calculated your technological disadvantages precisely. But we missed something fundamental." He pressed a control, and the force field disappeared. Alan tensed, ready for anything. "I am returning you to Earth," the commander said simply. Alan didn't move, suspecting a trick. "Why?" "Because I was wrong about your species." Zarthul's voice was solemn. "You are not what I thought. When faced with an enemy who had tried to kill you, who promised to destroy your world, you chose mercy. Such strength of character cannot be measured in our studies. One human doesn't represent all of us," Alan said carefully. "No, but one can change everything. The commander gestured for Alan to follow him. I have ordered my fleet to stand down. I am going to recommend to the Hegemony Council that we open real diplomatic relations with Earth. They walked through corridors where alien crew members stopped and stared at the human who moved freely alongside their commander. My superiors will not be pleased, Zarthul continued. Our expansion plans will need to be reconsidered, but I cannot in good conscience order an attack on a species I have so deeply misunderstood. They reached a small shuttle bay. A craft was prepared for launch. This will return you to Earth, the commander said. I have transmitted a message to your leaders explaining the situation. Alan looked at him carefully. How do I know this isn't a strategy? Send me back, let me give a false sense of security, then attack? Zarthul reached into his uniform and removed a small device. He placed it in Alan's hand. This records everything that happens on my ship. Take it to your leaders. It contains my report to the council recommending peace. Alan closed his fingers around the device. Thank you. No, the commander said. Thank you, Major Alan Shepard. You have taught me that strength comes in many forms. The legends of human courage and compassion that I once mocked, I now understand they are not exaggerations. As Alan boarded the shuttle, Zarthul gave him a formal salute of respect. Your world has produced at least one true hero. I suspect there are many more. The hegemony would be wise to make friends of humans, not enemies. The shuttle doors closed. As the small craft pulled away from the massive flagship, Alan watched through the viewport as the hegemony fleet began moving away from Earth orbit. He had come aboard prepared to die to save his planet. Instead, he had saved it by showing the best of what humanity could be. Sometimes, he realized, the strongest weapon isn't technology or physical power. Sometimes, it's the choice to remain human even in the darkest moments. The blue planet grew, larger in his viewport. Home. He had kept his promise after all.